Fun fact about me, I have become absolutely obsessed with begonias in the last probably about year or so. I feel like I've really gotten like a handle on how to take care of them, and that has led to me amassing quite a few in the past maybe 12 to 18 months. I have grown my collection from maybe 1 or 2 begonias to 23. Which is kind of a lot, and most of which I have grown from cuttings as well. So I thought it'd be perfect, and my patrons agreed that I should be doing a begonia ranking video similar to how I did my Hoya ranking video a few months back, where I go through and show you all of the begonias I have in my collection and rank them from worst to best. That being said, none of these are bad. I do really like all of the begonias I have, and I'm very excited about all of them. So even though it might be in spot 19, it's not in a bad place. It's just not as great as the ones in the top sort of 10. Maybe you can add some of these to your begonia wish list because there are some absolutely gorgeous ones on here. So before I get into it, I want to say if you're new here and you don't know me already, hi, my name is Emma and I make houseplanting content all over the internet. So if you want to follow along with my houseplanting journey and maybe learn something along the way, stick around, watch some more of my videos, and subscribe to my channel. If you are not new here, welcome back. I really appreciate you returning. If you're interested in getting notified when I post videos, click the little bell icon next to the subscribe button, and YouTube will tell you when I post, so you can be there first and watch it right away. I do need to say, I got a few begonias recently, like very, very recently, so recently that I don't think I can rank them quite yet. But I still want to show them off because I'm very, very excited about them. And I have a feeling that a lot of them are going to rise up in the ranks very, very quickly once I've like sort of got them situated and like have them growing in my collection. So I really quickly want to first show you these 4 because they're amazing. So the first one that sort of prompted this begonia cutting order that I put in was a wishlist begonia. It is the Begonia bipinnatifida. Look at that. And this, like I said, is one on my wish list this year. I have lots of begonias on my wish list still, but this was one that I just like really, 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 really wanted to get my hands on because I think it looks so different to all of the other begonias in my collection. They're more like flat-leaved, and these leaves, like I don't even know how to describe them. They're kind of like snowflakey, and it's really exciting. I have this one in semi-hydro, and it's currently living in my pond box because where it was staying before I got it, it was in like a high humidity prop box, and the person who sold it to me said, keep it in that sort of situation while it's continuing to root. And so I've got it in semi-hydro in my pond box. And I think it's doing pretty well. Like I said, I haven't had these for very long, about a week now, and so I can't really comment on how well they grow yet for me, but I can be extremely excited about them. So that is the first one, and I have 3 more that I got on the back of this order because I really wanted them and I just couldn't resist. Okay? I broke my plant ban and I'm not mad at it because it's for these beautiful begonias. Another sort of loby one, but very loby in a different type of way, is this Begonia Sophie Cecile. And look at the shape of these leaves. It's the shape of these leaves that really drew me to them. I mean, I also love myself a really dark black leaf. You'll see a lot of really dark begonias in this section, and I really, really love them. And I think it's really cool when begonia leaves are a little bit of a different shape because it just like adds a little bit of intrigue. This one I've just got in water. It is a cutting. Like I said, very, very new to me. I'm just gonna root it like this. I've currently got this one in my Mills boat for the time being, just while it roots. And maybe once it roots and I've potted up, it might stay in there for a little bit, but I feel like it's going to be an absolutely massive one, so it's not going to fit in there for very long. But I just couldn't resist this sort of really funky leaf shape on this one, and also the backs of these leaves are that classic like dark blood red, which I absolutely love. But oh, so, so beautiful, isn't it? Kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, I went for a super duper silvery one. I'm also obsessed with silvery begonias. You'll see more of those in this too. but this is a Begonia Don Miller. These all have really, really weird names. I don't quite understand. I'm sure they're named after people and that's why they're called that, but they're literal like human names. So this is my Don Miller, and it is a super, super silvery sort of cane begonia. Again, I just have a cutting in some water, and it's not put out any roots yet. It was a fresh cut when I got it, so I'm not expecting anything anytime soon, but oh, it is just so, so pretty. And this one and the next one are living in my acrobar cabinet right now because it gets lots of light in there and it's a little bit more humid than my sort of average home humidity, but fairly, like nothing that intense. But I figure it's the perfect place for this one to live while it is rooting. And again, eventually this one will go into semi-hydro, but I really, really love this one. I kind of like how the silvery ones don't have as red of backs as well, because red can sometimes be a little bit off-putting. That was one of the things that I massively struggled with begonias at the beginning of my sort of plant collecting journey. I'm pretty sure maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, I said that I would never grow begonias because I didn't like them.
I am not a fan of begonias.
Obviously massively changed my mind, but I think one of the big things was the sort of red color in them, and that's not always my favorite. I have grown to love it though, but for the ones that don't have that sort of red backing, it kind of has like a little extra special place in my heart because it's just more my jam ever so slightly. And then this last new begonia is kind of like a pinky version of the last one. This is a Begonia Maurice Amy. Again, really, really weird names, but it's kind of got the same sort of coloration and leaf shape as the Don Miller, but in a beautiful pink. And I mean, this one has, again, the red backs of the leaves, and it's kind of got a more like dark blackish base as opposed to the lighter green base that the other one had. But I feel like these look so, so nice next to each other because they kind of give the same vibe. It's like same vibe, different color. Quick fun fact, I learned about these two while I have been editing this video and putting in sort of what hybridizations each of them come from. I learned that these are actually siblings. They came from the same sort of hybridization. So someone hybridized a Begonia torch with a Begonia U062, and it produced two different types of seedlings, one that made the Don Miller and one that made the Maurice Amy. And so they're siblings. They come from the same parentage. They're same but different. I didn't realize that, but it's like so true that they are same but different. But I just thought that was a bit of a fun fact, and I wanted to share it because it made me excited. I absolutely love this one. Again, we are just a stem cutting in here. Nothing special quite yet, but in time, I am sure that all of these four are going to really, really rise up in my estimations because I just find them so incredibly beautiful. Now we can get into this actual proper begonia ranking portion where I've had these begonias for a little bit longer and I can talk about them ever so slightly more. Obviously the higher ranked ones I can probably talk about a lot more. These first few are all living inside of this prop box I have here. It is a sphagnum moss prop box, and they all just live inside it. Some of them I can pull out, some of them I can't. I think the first couple I can. So in 19th place, so the bottom of my ranking, unfortunately, I've got this one. This is a Begonia longisolata. I think formerly they were called Sizemore or something like that. This was one that was given to me by a friend because they didn't like that it was hairy, because this one is an actual hairy begonia. Not just like a little bit of hair, but a lot of hair on these leaves. It's like proper wiry, and they weren't a fan of it. And to be honest, I don't think I'm the greatest fan of it either, but you know, we can always try things. I didn't want to like not give it a go just for that sake. And I think originally she gave it to me with this leaf, but this leaf has gone a bit bleached for some reason. The normal coloration on this one is a bit more like green instead of these sort of whiter leaves. I think these are just a little bit old and probably ready to come off soon, but it's just the like sort of hair on these that really weirds me out. And So therefore I don't really pay attention to it. It just lives in this box. It's technically in soil, but I don't ever water it because it's in like 100% humidity prop box, and so I don't really need to. In 18th, we have another one here. It is more of a spiral leafed begonia. That's one of the things that I do quite like about lots of Rex begonias. They grow in more of a spirally shape, which I do find quite fun. So I would love if I could get this one to grow out a little bit more. Even like the sort of baby ditty leaf in there has a sort of spiral on it, which is cute. But this one, again, I think it has just gone a little bit bleached because it does receive quite a lot of light. The normal coloration is probably even a darker version of this sort of green, and it does have some like sort of white spots on it, but because it is in such a high light place, it has gone a little bit bleached. And this one I have just purely in sphagnum. And you know what? I feel like I should probably water this one because it is looking a little bit dry. Maybe I'll water this prop box after this. But I don't, like, it's fine. I genuinely just don't really pay attention to the ones in here. And actually the rest of the ones in here I can't even pull out because they are literally in the moss in the box. Those other two were potted. So let me pull you down now so you can see these next three. In 17th place, we've got this begonia up here. And I'll make sure to put in some good B-roll of the ones in this box because they're a little bit harder to show you. But this is a begonia dark eyes, and you can kind of see the darkness around this leaf here. And these can grow so much bigger, but because it's been in the prop box and I've not really been paying attention to it, I think it has not sized up as much as I probably could get it to. I think my goal with these long term would be to get a sort of vivarium system going where I could have these in a sort of like big fish tank full of different begonias that really like this sort of high humidity. All these sort of Rex begonias do like quite a lot of humidity, and I struggle to provide that elsewhere in my home, and that's why I've just kind of left them in this box because I've not been able to keep them happy otherwise. And so something like that in the future would be great, but for now they just kind of have to live in this zone and maybe not live the happiest of lives, but that's a really cool one. I do much prefer the sort of dark centers and then sort of silver around the outside of the leaves on that one. I think it is quite fun. In this bottom corner here, I've got No ID in spot 16. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it's got sort of black, dark, velvety leaf to it. So again, if anyone has the ID, pretty please let me know. But it is a funky one. I do really like it. And I think this one grows a little bit more loby leaves, which is quite fun and different compared to the other ones I've shown so far. And then in 15th place, the one that you can see the most of in this box, this sort of whole begonia here. This is a begonia solid silver. And I really, really like the sort of coloration on this one. It's not gotten as bleached as the other ones have, but it is growing very, very well for me. It probably likes the prop box the best out of all of the ones I have in here. And I mean, you can tell why it's called solid silver, right? I feel like it's pretty freaking obvious based off of these leaves why it's called that. They are just extremely silver and like kind of cool speckled as well. They're very iridescent. I'll try and get some B-roll where you can really see the shimmer on it because they are literally metallic. It is super fun. And I know this is the one that I like best in this box. Maybe this black one will come for it if this one starts growing better and I can get an ID on it. But for now, the solid silver really, really has my heart in this box. In 14th place, living in my Acrobar mini greenhouse here, we've got the classic polka dot begonia, Begonia maculata, the sort of begonia you'll find in like most plant shops in my experience. It's like the most common one I have seen. And I just have a tiny little baby one of this. I did get it as a bigger plant and I tried to put it into semi-hydro from soil. It hated that. It died back to nothing and I had to restart again from propagations. and this is where I have gotten to from that. I think I had maybe like a 1 or 2 leaf propagation, really, really, really small. And so I'm slowly reviving it. That's why it's not very high up on this list. I have a feeling once it like sort of gets back on track, it can definitely raise itself up, but because it has been such an absolute struggle for me, it is still kind of low here. But it's doing pretty well now that I have got it into a good place. It looks like it's also sort of branching out in there, which is cool, meaning it'll get even fuller. And so in time, I'll be able to get this one to be nice and big and bushy. But for now, it's just chilling in the acrobar. And to be honest, I think the light in there, it's just under a Soltec light. It might be a little bit too bright for it, or for too many hours or something, because it is looking a little bit pale in there. The leaves are normally this sort of dark green color, but the newest ones have been coming in a little bit lighter than I would have wanted, so maybe it is time to move this one into a slightly darker spot. That's kind of unusual. Normally in houseplants, I'm having to move things into brighter spots, but I don't think this one likes incredibly, incredibly bright light, but it's just fine. It's pretty middle of the road, not doing amazing for me at the moment, but also not doing like terribly. Coming back to the sideboard here, we have number 13, lucky number 13, my favorite number actually. But number 13 in my ranking, this beautiful black, I think this is a rhizomaceous begonia. This is a Begonia Maze F nigricans, I believe it's pronounced. I'm not positive, and I only have just been able to ID this one. For the longest time, I thought it was a black mamba, because that's what somebody else had ID'd it as. It's not that, but it is still absolutely freaking gorgeous and black and velvety in these leaves as well. They're so soft. But I just have this one growing in straight up sphagnum moss in here in this peanut butter jar, and I've never taken it out of this. I'm a little bit scared to at this point because it is still growing fairly okay. I think I could probably put it in a brighter spot and it might grow slightly less leggy. You can see it's a bit funky. Or, I mean, I could also prune it back and like propagate those back into them and get it to like grow more like that, grow bushier. I feel like that's a fairly good way to go about things with begonias. So many of the ones on this list I have chopped and propped to fill out because I got them from very small plants, but it is still growing in there. Look at that itty bitty leaf. Oh my gosh, an even ittier bittier leaf. So freaking cute. And it's just a fun, cool, weird, velvety one. Like, it's not my absolute favorite, but I am still really obsessed with it, and I'm actually kind of scared to put it into semi-hydro. This is actually one of the only, if not the, no, I've got 2 that aren't in semi-hydro, and this is one of them. And I feel like in order to get it into semi-hydro, I'll probably have to chop and prop in water and then put it into semi-hydro, because begonias tend to be a little bit of divas when it comes to that sort of transformation, and that's why I've kind of put off doing this one. But it's also been growing perfectly fine in this situation, so like I can't be that upset with it. In 12th place, we have another one that's looking a little bit scraggly here. This is my Begonia Thurstonii, and I really do like this one. I think it's just a little bit early for me with this one. I got it as a single cutting, and I have since been able to chop and prop it once. I feel like I just need to chop and prop it again because it is just a little bit leggy in here. I think it might not be getting quite enough light in that zone because it's kind of not quite in the path of the mother grow light here. It's just kind of tucked to the side, so it's not getting the grow light that the other ones in that area are. But it is still really cool, and I find one of my favorite things about this one is the backs of these leaves. I think they are so incredible. They look like little lungs in the veination, and I think it's really cool. Also, this is one that's more like waxy than the other ones that I have. They tend to be a bit more matte or even velvety, but this one is like super shiny waxy in those leaves, which is a little bit of fun and a little bit different for me. And it's not like a lot of the other ones in my collection because of that. Also, I've got this one in no drainage in semi-hydro because I didn't have any more self-watering pots at the time I needed to pot this up. And I found that it really likes this sort of no drainage life. I have this one and the next one is also in no drainage, and they seem to be perfectly fine in here. I think there's a little bit of roots that you can see. They're not the thickest of roots, begonias, and so they are quite difficult. I think that's why they do struggle with the transition between whatever propagation medium and semi-hydro, or soil and semi-hydro. And so putting it into semi-hydro, the easiest way for me to do that was with propagations as opposed to like full plants, because the other ones, they shocked a little bit too much. In 11th place, we have this insane thing. This is a Begonia Hatikoa Silver. I'm still working on it. I think it has the capacity to definitely rise up and get into like the sort of top 10 sort of area once it kind of perks up, but it's taken a toll, definitely. So this was a plant I bought in May last year. It was the first plant I bought in 2024. And it was like a big, beautiful thing. I saw it at Malvern. I saw these silver leaves and I was like, there's no way I'm not getting this. And I decided to split it with one of my plant friends. And so I split it apart and put both halves in semi-hydro, one for me, one for my friend. And they hated it. They absolutely freaking hated it. I had to chop it and prop it then in order to get anything to survive. All of the bottom bits of the roots did not like that sort of transition. It was very, very unhappy with me in that situation. And so I have since been able to get this one growing, but only because I took cuttings, water propagated them, and then put them into semi-hydro. And from there, it's been really, really great and growing a whole lot better. It is still working on it. I do have it in this spot underneath my TV because I can monitor it really well here. I really like to be able to see the water level quite closely because I want to make sure it's not drying out too much. And it's a bit of a shame because there's not the best light in this position. It's not fantastic. And I think this one could prefer slightly more light. And so I think that's why the leaves aren't necessarily growing as big as they used to. And so maybe I need to put it into a better sort of spot, but I can't think of a better spot for this one at the minute. Maybe the shelves in the bedroom. I'll have a think about it, but for now, it's just going to stay here. I have since been able to like chop and prop it a couple of times, and so I've got more than one little plant in here, which is great. It does chop and prop fairly well. I still have had some issues going from water propagation even to the semi-hydro, but for the most part, it is done really nicely. And this one's also in no drainage, and the roots are actually pretty okay in here. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's doing quite well. And if I can get this beautiful silvery one to grow massive, she will rise in the rankings. Going into the top 10 here, we are going into the Millsbow, and I'm gonna show you 10 and 9 in here. So first up in 10th place, I'm a little bit surprised this is 10th place because it's not like, I wouldn't expect it, but I think I have like hope for it, and that's why it is so high. This is my Begonia Cleopatriae. I think it's pronounced. I call it my Begonia Cleo. I bought it because my cat's named Cleo, and this begonia is called Cleo, and I had to get it. Really quick Cleo intermission here. Yes. Yes. I know you're not a begonia, but you're still my favorite. And I've had a little bit of a struggle with this one. I did buy it as a full plant, and it was in soil, and that transition just did not go well for it. It didn't lose all of its leaves. I know some begonias, when you change them from soil into semi-hydro, they can just like lose everything and die back to nothing. Luckily, this one didn't do that, but it's definitely not looking 100%, but it is perking up. It was definitely very droopy for a while. It did lose a bunch of leaves down in the back here and didn't do as well for a little while, but I think it is on the mend. It is putting out new growth again and actually giving me some new leaves, and I think it's quite cool as well. This one is a rhizomaceous begonia, so very different to the sort of cane begonias that are typically my favorites. And I think they do prefer higher humidity, so I don't think I'll ever be able to grow this one outside of the cabinet just because it likes the sort of humidity and warmth in here, given it's not terribly humid at the minute, but the door's been open for a little bit, so I'm assuming that's why it's dropped slightly, because it's at 63% now, but it is generally higher in here than the rest of the flat. But we're hoping that it gets back on track fairly soon. I think it will. I think it is on the mend, and luckily this wasn't a very expensive one, and that's why I wasn't like too worried about it when I did transfer it from soil to semi-hydro. If it did freak out, I can always buy another one, but I don't think I will have to at this point. I think it should be okay. It might just take a little bit more time. And then in the 9th spot, we have my begonia pink spot. This guy, oh my goodness, look how cute the little pink spots are on it. It's just so freaking adorable. So this one, it also kind of had a little bit of a freak out on me, but it freaked out when I took it out of the pond box because I got it quite small, like very small. It transferred to semi-hydro really well from soil because it was tiny. And then I had it in my pond box for quite a long time in like 100% humidity. It really did not like the transfer from the pond box into the cabinet, even though this is a more humid environment than the rest of my home. It just like threw an absolute fit and like got rid of all of the leaves from this one stem here. And I think it did only have the one stem at that point. This one has branched out since. I think because it was losing lots of leaves, it was like, oh, how do I preserve myself? And decided to branch out, which is great. I haven't yet chopped and propped this one, but it is nearing the point where I think I'll need to because it is getting quite tall for itself. But it's doing really well now, and you can see it has like regained its ability to keep leaves alive, and they are still really stinking cute with their little pink spots on them. So I'm very happy with it. I think it's doing great, and this will get covered up when I propagate it and put some more cuttings back in the bottom and make it bushier again. But for now, it's just gonna look ever so slightly scraggly here. In spot number 8, we have this beautiful thing. This is a Begonia coccinea, I think it's pronounced, also known as an angel wing begonia. I know a lot of these sort of spotted, like maculata-y begonias are called angel wings, but not all of them are, I don't think. And I found this one to be a pretty easy grower. It's not been at all complicated. I've just got it on a little trellis in here to help support it, a clear one, so it kind of looks like it's standing up on its own, but definitely does need the support because it is very tall. I've also chopped and propped this one several times over. You can see a sort of cut there, and that has encouraged it to branch out as well and get a little bit fuller. But my goal with these is just to like keep chopping and propping again and again until I can get them to be like really big, full, bushy ones, like some of the ones coming a little bit later. In 7th place, we have the begonia in my planted window, the Begonia baramensis, I think it's called. And this one is a terrarium begonia, hence why I have it very much so in the terrarium here in my beautiful little terrarium window, which I absolutely love. This is one of the few that I actually do keep in soil because it is in the terrarium. I probably could put it in semi-hydro in here, but I don't think it's quite like water tight. I think it's water resistant around the edges. I can see like a little bit of mineral buildup around here. I think that's just from the water like very minimally seeping through, so like not a lot. But I don't really want to risk putting it in like a water reservoir in here because I don't think it would do well. But I got this as a single leaf cutting, I believe, at one of the plant swaps in 2024, and since then it has given me some decent couple of leaves. Both of these two leaves have been grown since I have had it, and it is such a cool one. Like, it is just like, I love the sort of black insides of it with the silver outsides. I mean, it's kind of a combination of my two favorite bits of begonias in one. And I think this one can grow quite big as well. Mine is still just a very, very baby cutting like plant. And so it's not grown massive yet, but I think they can grow quite big. And when they do, that'll be awesome. Eventually, I would love to sort of like maybe acclimate it slowly to less terrarium-y conditions. If it gets bigger, if it gets too big for this little guy, I will probably have to do that because, I mean, it's not going to fit in here eventually. And if it doesn't fit, I'll have to give it some new space unless I do make that like sort of vivarium situation one day, which I very well could. I might do. But until then, if this gets too big, it's going to have to learn to live at lower humidity. I'll just have to like very slowly acclimate it to that point. My newest begonia that I'm actually able to rate is this one here. This is a begonia Sinbad coming in at 6th place. And this was a 2025 wish list plant for me, and I know we are still very early into 2025, but lovely Claire gave me a cutting of hers, which hers is massive and gorgeous and like everything I want this one to become, but she very graciously gave me a cutting, and I have since potted up into semi-hydro, and it is growing phenomenally. Given it was quite big when I got it, but it has just absolutely blasted off, and it's actually the only begonia I have in my collection that is currently flowering. Look at that little guy. It's really cool. A lot of my begonias don't flower or haven't flowered, and I'm not exactly sure why that is. I think partly it is to do with light, but even my sort of like bigger ones in higher light situations, they're not flowering. So like I'm really not sure, but this one is loving the grow light in here. Unlike the maculata in the back, this one's just eating it up and really, really enjoying the sort of light. And I think that might be what helped this one encourage it to flower. But I love the sort of polka dots on the Sinbad, and it also, this one is like kind of hairy as well, but like the sort of barbed hairy, sort of like a cat's tongue. And I really love it. And the leaves can stay a little bit more pinky in some cases. Some sort of fade to the, like this whiter color, but no matter what, they are really cool. I just really love how tiny the spots are. It kind of makes it look a bit more minty in color than the sort of like big spotted ones. And so, I'm just obsessed with it. And so glad that I was able to tick off this wish list begonia because like, it is everything. I'm so like, oh my God, I cannot get over it. I'm just like, it's so beautiful. I could stare at it all day. And I do just look in here very regularly at this beautiful begonia just sitting here. I love it so much. In 5th place, we have the Begonia Snowcap. And, like, do you see these leaves? They are just absolutely stunning. And this one has actually grown quite a bit since I recorded it in my plant tour video. I swear it maybe had like 3 or 4 less leaves a month ago, and it was already starting to sort of fall over then. I desperately need to get this one on a trellis. I still haven't. As you can see, I'm kind of holding it up, otherwise it would fully just pull itself out of the pot, so I need to give it support sooner rather than later. But it is doing really, really well in here, and I think I'll probably end up chopping and propping this one soon too. Maybe chop and prop, and then once that one's ready, I can put them on a sort of trellis together and get it to be a little bit fuller. I just love the sort of size of these leaves. I really like when begonia leaves are a little bit bigger. I feel like they're just a little bit more fun, and the Snowcap is one of the ones that is that sort of size that I really like. It also just makes them easier to clean, which is quite helpful because they are otherwise quite a pain. But yeah, here's my beautiful snow cap, looking absolutely stunning. Coming in fourth place, we've got my Begonia Black Forest, which I am absolutely obsessed with. I love these sort of like wavy leaves. They're very, very much ruffled around the edges, which I quite like, and the blackness on the fronts. And like I love the silver spots, but I kind of like how on this one they're a bit more spread out. I feel like it leans it more towards the like super dark black goth plant side, which I do really love. And again, I grew this one from a single cutting, and I've been able to like get it to branch out quite a lot and grow more just by chopping and propping it. And oh, it's just so freaking beautiful. Oh, I'm obsessed. In third place, we have this insane beast. And easily my biggest begonia. This is a Begonia Arabian Sunset. And I've actually just taken a couple of cuttings so I can sort of better show you it, because it's so hard to actually capture the glory of this one because it has just kind of gone crazy. This started out as a tiny single cutting, like one cutting, and it has grown into this insanity. I've put it underneath this Soltech light, which is off at the very moment because it's easier to film with it off, but it has decided to swallow the light. It likes the light so much, in fact too much, that it will like go towards it and consequently burn its own leaves because it really likes being by the light so much. And it has just grown like crazy. I actually have it on a sort of hexagon chain that I've attached to the like wall mount for the grow light, and it really likes that. It has grown incredibly. I think when I put it up here, it was maybe here. Earlier in 2024, it was down here, and has easily been one of my fastest growing begonias. And I also just absolutely love the sort of gothness of it. It is the gothest begonia in my opinion. It has black fronts of leaves, blood red backs of leaves, and it's kind of got little spikes on it. They're like not quite hairy, but they're not fully spiky either. There are some begonias out there that are like properly like thick spikes. This isn't one of them. This is more, I'd say more hairy than that, but it's still like, I consider this, like when you feel it, it kind of feels like a sort of cat's tongue. It's like barbed almost, which further leads it into that sort of goth category. And I have found this one to be so incredibly easy to grow. It's also in semi-hydro, but it is incredibly thirsty just because of the size of the plant. The root system is huge and it drinks water so fast. I genuinely can't water it fast enough. And it's growing far too big. I think at this point I need to give it like a huge chop back. You can also see that down the bottom, which is normally covered by plants, I have other plants that live on top of this that kind of block it out normally, but around the bottom it has lost a lot of leaves just because, probably from underwatering really, because I can't always get to this one in time to water it because it is kind of situated in like a far back corner that's quite hard to reach on the regular. So I do let it go drier than I probably should, but to be honest, does it look like it cares? No, I really don't think it does. The leaves on it, the new growth is still growing incredibly well, very strong, very healthy. And so even though I'm not a perfect plant parent for it, I'm not worried because it is just doing phenomenally, and I think it absolutely deserves to be in the third place position. It's not my favorite, but it's very high up there. In second place, silver medal winner here, we've got the begonia that kind of started it all for me. It lives on my bedside table because I'm obsessed with it, and it's one of the few places it'll actually fit because it is quite a large plant at this point, considering I grew this from a single cutting. I got a single cutting from one of my plant friends, and oh, this, it just, It was just such a fun journey. This was the one that really taught me how to like propagate begonias and get them to grow well. I like water propagated it, and then I had it in my pond box for quite a long time till it was like more than ready to come out. And I slowly then acclimated it from my pond box to my IKEA greenhouse cabinet, my Millsbow, and then into this sort of normal room humidity. And that did take a little bit of time. I potentially could have gone more straight out of that high humidity, but I thought it'd be better to kind of slowly acclimate it instead. I've also chopped and propped this one so many times. Just constantly chopping and propping it. I should probably chop it again just because it's getting a little bit tall at the minute. I have it on a like little trellis thing because it desperately needs it in order to stay up. But I love this one so much. I love the sort of spotted pattern it has on these leaves, and how when it's in like quite highlight, I think down here it was in quite a highlight spot when it was growing these leaves, it gets even more silver around the tips of them, and it is just so big and beautiful. I've also like given so many people cuttings of this one because it has been such an easy one for me, and I feel like it was a great place to really understand how to take care of them, because I've had begonias in the past. Before this one I had several, and I really struggled with them. I really struggled with them in soil, and since growing this one in semi-hydro and sort of like figuring out how to keep it happy and healthy, I just feel so much more confident in them now. And it like, now that I've been able to grow this one, I've gotten every single one of these other begonias in this entire list. And so that is why it is so high up on my rankings. I do think it could get beaten out in time if some of the other ones I have sort of grow better, because it's not like my absolute favorite looks wise, but like sentimentally, she's high up there. So she'll always be in my top 10, if not my top 3. And then in my number 1 spot, we have another beast of a begonia. This is the Begonia Coralina. And holy cow, do you see how big it is? Do you see how big each of these leaves are? They're like the size of my head. They're huge. So this one also has like a really lovely sort of sentimental backstory. So my neighbor had one outside of their flat in the sort of like communal hallway area for decades, I swear. And when we moved in, it was there, it was big, it was beautiful. I absolutely loved looking at it. It made me really happy. And like it was kind of like the jungle outside of my jungle. I didn't even have to care for that jungle, but it was big and beautiful and luscious. And then our building society suddenly decided that it was a fire risk, and she had to get rid of all of the plants she had there. I think she had like a massive Christmas cactus and like, I think a weeping fig as well, just lots of stuff. And the big begonia was one of them. And she very kindly offered me a cutting before she like gave it to her friends to take care of because she couldn't fit it into her flat. I don't think she's got a big collection or anything, but like, it's kind of a big begonia that takes up a lot of space, and so I don't blame her. But she gave me a cutting, and it wasn't a small cutting, that's for sure. It had like 4 or 5 quite large leaves. I cut that up into single leaf cuttings, propagated those, and put that into semi-hydro, and it has just gone crazy. And if you've seen my plant tour video, you'll know that this one lives in not a very great spot. It lives actually normally in my kitchen, but the light in there is pretty crappy. It's right in front of a northwest facing window that is entirely blocked by a tree. So it's really like getting very minimal light at any point in time. And this time of year doesn't see the sun at all. Maybe in the summer at sunset it might get a little bit of dappled light, but like really not much. And it is still growing absolutely huge. I suppose it has sized down a little bit, but even the sizing down on it, the leaves are still absolutely massive. And I have also chopped and propped this one several times over since I've had it. I got it like summer last year, the like first cutting. And so it has just grown so incredibly quickly and so beautifully and so big and so fast. since I've had it. It has just not stopped growing, even though it's not in the best of situations. It has just grown and grown and grown, and I cannot fault this one. I absolutely love it. It is huge and beautiful, and like, it is literally the begonia of my dreams. And that's why it has claimed the #1 best begonia slot in my rankings. I just think it absolutely deserves it, and it has been an absolute trooper. And even though I barely give it anything, like I probably put it in one of the worst spots in my home, it is still just absolutely thriving and super duper happy. And so I couldn't be more grateful for this one and happy that I have it in my collection. And I just love it so much. It's so beautiful. So yeah. Oh my goodness, that is all of the begonias I have in my collection, all 23 of them now that I have got those new cuttings, which I'm very excited about. I'm really looking forward to seeing where those end up in the rankings once they start like going into my collection and sort of growing properly as opposed to just sitting in water, which they have been for the last week. They'll root eventually, I'm sure of it. But yeah, I'm just very excited for all of them. I'm so excited to see other begonias that I end up getting down the line later this year. I have several more on my wish list that I would absolutely love to get my hands on. Don't know if I will, but fingers crossed, we can hope that I am able to get more. And if I do, I'll be sure to show them as well. Maybe not in another ranking video, at least for another year or two, because this is enough for right now, but in time. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up down below and leave a comment on other houseplants you'd like me to talk about in the future. If there's any other genuses you'd like me to talk about, let me know. I've already done the Hoya one. I will link that video down below. I'm thinking about doing an alocasia one soon. I could do an epipremnum one. So let me know if you have any genuses you want me to talk about, and I can do that, and subscribe for more. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and don't forget to keep growing. Bye!